Hello, everybody, and welcome to Heartlight Vedic Astrology. In today's talk, I was going to cover the planetary transits or Gochara for October 2024. And again, this talk is from a Vedic astrology or Jyotish perspective, so ancient Indian astrology, more than 5,000 years old. So it seemed like the theme for this month is seeking clarity and courage. Okay, so let's take a look. Note beforehand, the information presented here is for educational purposes only. It should not be considered medical, financial, professional, or life advice of any kind. If you are in need, please contact an appropriate professional for support. Okay. Then you might take a minute or two to read the rest of this disclaimer. Okay, if you're new to Vedic astrology, also known as Jyotish in Sanskrit, or my videos, all of my teaching videos on the subject are in my consults playlist. They can all be found there. And wherever you see a double asterisk in one of my talks, that means there's a teaching video on that subject if you'd like to learn more. My channel is all about playlists, so if I would check those out if there's any particular topic area within Jyotish that you're interested in learning. So, like, I have a Graha's Planets playlist, a Bhava's Houses playlist, a Yoga's Planetary Combinations playlist, and others, so that the videos are easy to find and learn from. Also, if you like to learn astrology by looking at charts, I've analyzed a lot of charts of famous people, places, and moments in time. And I have a video titled Birth Chart Archive List 2024, where I've listed all the videos, or sorry, all the birth charts I've analyzed on the channel, and the video you can find them in, because you can't always tell from the title of the video that I actually have famous birth charts in there. So helpful videos to watch with this one. We do have a solar eclipse in October, so I do have a lunar solar eclipse video that talks about the general astronomy and general interpretation and advice for any eclipse. So that's out there for you. Those are called chandra, surya, grahans, lunar solar eclipses. I also have a more recent video titled Auspicious Timing of Eclipses, or grahan muhurta. Because there's a lot of practices surrounding eclipses to help us work with that energy, because the energy of eclipses can be pretty intense and often chaotic. So you might check that out. North, South, and East Indian style charts. I do cover Western style charts in that video as well. Introduction to navigating a birth chart. The Lugna, also known as the Ascendant Rising Sign First House. Introduction to the constellations or Rashis, constellation or Rashi categories. Planetary aspects, directional strength or Digbala. Swagrahas, or planets in their own house or star. Natural benefic and malefic planets or grahas. Karako Bhavanasha, which is planet breaking house. Planet friends and enemies, or graha, mitra, shatru, bhavat, bhavam, house of the house concept. Planetary combustion or asta. Sundi or gandanta, so um, you know, uh, particular aspects of a chart that are on an edge somewhere, like in a transition zone. Planetary exaltation or debilitation, or uccha, nicha. Planetary retrogression or vakri. Nakshatras or lunar mansions. And then we have a bunch of yogas here. So kala sarpa yoga, parivartana yoga, and solar and lunar yogas that I'll be talking about. All right, so a lot to learn is out there for you. Okay, so what we have here is a list of all the dates in October when things are moving around in the sky. So October 2nd is the solar eclipse or Surya Grahan. That's going to be in Virgo or Kanya, constellation of Rashi. It's going to be in Hasta Nakshatra. October 3rd, Saturn enters Shatabisha Nakshatra. October 4th, Venus enters Vishaka Nakshatra. October 6th, Mercury enters Chitra Nakshatra, and it also is going to have an exact aspect by Mars. October 8th, Jupiter has an exact aspect on Mercury. October 9th, Jupiter is retrograde or vakri. October 10th, Sun enters Chitra Nakshatra, and that same day, Mercury enters Libra or Tula constellation. And at that, when Mercury moves out of Virgo, that also means that the 5-9 aspects of K2 are going to diminish, which probably a lot of people will be happy about, because they've been like that for a few weeks now, and it's been very chaotic. That's the energy K2 brings. So K2 will be a little more constrained, as much as K2 can be constrained. It's hard to constrain K2. October 12th, Venus enters Scorpio or Vishaka. October 13th, Jupiter and Mars both have an exact aspect on the Sun. October 14th, Mercury enters Swati Nakshatra. October 15th, Venus enters Anuradha Nakshatra. October 16th, Sun enters Libra Tula. And so that's a samkranti, we call that in Sanskrit, and I have a video on that if you want to learn about that. October 17th, there's a full moon in Aries or Mesha in Ashwini nakshatra. October 20th, Mars enters Cancer Karka. October 22nd, Mercury enters Vishaka. And on that same day, it leaves combustion or asta. So you can see Mercury's doing like double duty. I mean, Mercury's already a dual planet, but you can see in October it's like even more so. October 23rd, Sun enters Swati Nakshatra. October 26th, Venus enters Jyeshta Nakshatra. October 28th, Saturn has an exact aspect on Venus, and Mars enters Pusha Nakshatra. October 29th, Mercury enters Scorpio. And October 31st, Mercury enters Anuradha Nakshatra. Then I just wanted to mention, even though it's in November, because it's the 1st, because I never know when people are watching these videos, November 1st, there's going to be a new moon in Swati Nakshatra. Okay, so there you go. Okay, so in this slide, I've got a couple charts here, and these charts represent, on the left, we have a chart representing October 1st, and then the second chart is October 31st. They're both set to Aries or Mesha, rising or constellation, Lagna, first house, ascendant, rising sign, Lagna, all different names are the same thing. The reason why I always set these for Aries or Mesha is that when we have the first constellation of Aries in the first house, then that creates what we call a natural zodiac, and the natural zodiac is kind of like a birth chart for the whole planet or all of humanity. Okay. So I just set these up so that we can see how things are changing in the sky and how we can, the vibe essentially is changing as well. Okay. So in the left chart on October 1st, it happens to be 19:06 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's just where I live in that time zone. So the moon nakshatra is going to be in Uttra Falguni. So the moon is it might seem it might seem like kind of funny when you see the other planets it's with, but moon is in Uttra Falguni. So this is kind of like a release or kind of a detachment from enjoyment, or at least enjoyment with a purpose. So it's not just like fun and frivolity, that sort of thing. And you can see that the moon here is in the 6th house with just about to go into a solar eclipse. So it's with the sun, it's with K2, it's with the SWA, Mercury, so Mercury in its own sign. And it's also aspected by Mars and Jupiter. So, except for Jupiter, this is a really tough mix, a lot of acute, pressure, deep, I would say like a deep sorting through of things mentally and emotionally. Okay, because this was in the 6th house. The 6th house represents like acute issues and that sort of thing. And Mars is on this combination here. You can see it's in like a big green circle. The big green circle is representing a pravraja yoga, which is a life focus yoga. Okay, so you can see that there's a lot of energy going here into the 6th house. So I think this is going to be like a natural time, kind of alluding to the solar eclipse, a natural time to withdraw and meditate and contemplate and go deep within to find answers to deal with any kind of problem, especially an acute type problem, because that's what we're looking at with the 6th house. The other thing is that when we have the solar eclipse, the sun is going to be eclipsed. You also can't see the moon because the sun um, blocks the moon, so those two are not visible. And then Mercury also happens to be asta because you can see Mercury's within the same degree of the sun. So Mercury's combo. So it's when a planet's so close to the sun that you can't see it because the light of the sun is blocking the visibility of the planet. So the planet's too close, you can't see the light reflecting off the planet anymore. So you can't see like any of these planets in the 6th house. So when you can't see all these planets, what that means is there's a natural drive internally. Okay, because you can't see the planets in the sky, that also means you can't see their energy, outwardly in your life. Okay. The other thing is that I've mentioned several times when Mercury is in its own sign, I typically see people who are interested in things like meditation and Buddhism specifically. So this is again like another indication, I think, of like really going deep within to figure out like apparently it's looking like there's some fairly, serious issues going on here. There is a little bit of support from Jupiter. Jupiter's a spiritual planet. It's like guru, that's the name of it in Sanskrit, and that means teacher. So, and a teacher meaning anybody who brings light to darkness. Right. So there's a lot of transformative energy here because Mars is a leadership planet. It's a fiery planet, and it's aspecting, Sun and Ketu, which are also fiery planets. So there's a lot of combustion here, which we've been seeing, and I've been talking about. Like that's why I've been seeing like so many things just like exploding. Probably mostly in a negative way, but there have been some good explosions too. And I'm going to talk about one of them in one of the charts I look at today. But you can see like stuff is blowing up, imploding, exploding here in the sixth house, and it's sort of calling on us to go deep within and figure out. Again, the sixth house here is Virgo, so it's a dual Earth sign. So a lot of when people have really strong placements in Virgo, they tend to be like the type of person who's always sorting through like material things. Like I've mentioned her many times, Marie Kondo. I haven't heard too much about her lately, but the last previous few years, she was kind of a hot item all over the place, wrote books and had a TV show or series or something like that. And she's a Japanese woman who is a tiding expert. And so that's what she does. She goes through people's houses and helps them sort through like what stays and what goes. And, so it's very much like a Virgo energy. And so we have, the two leadership planets energy here. We have the two mind planets, both the emotional mind of Moon and the logical mind of Mercury, all very much dominated by Mercury. And Mercury again is the analysis, you know, weighing pros and cons, that sort of thing. And you can see that Mars is in a house owned by Gemini. It's in a house owned by Mercury in Gemini, and it's aspecting the other house owned by Gemini. So again, there's a lot of transformative energy about how people are thinking and sorting through things, and especially like problems here. Okay. And Mars is not only in Gemini aspecting Virgo, but it's also aspecting the owner of those two. So again, there's a lot of, probably anger, frankly, and upset, but it's also, again, a good time to go deep within and try to figure out a better way to move forward. The other thing is that, again, whenever we have an eclipse, solar or lunar or whatever, we're always having a lineup of the sun, the moon, Ketu, and Rahu. Okay. So either sun and moon are opposed to each other, or they're in the same degree or whatever. But the thing is, what do those planets represent in terms of people? Well, sun represents father, moon represents mother, Rahu represents maternal grandparents, and Ketu represents paternal grandparents. So there's always, deep within, embedded within any eclipse, we're talking about generational karma here. With Jyotish, right, with Vedic astrology, when we're looking at planets and stuff like that, we're basically looking at pockets of karma, like are things going to move in a negative direction or positive direction, according to most people's perception. But especially with eclipses, there's something very deep in terms of, having, I think, an opportunity, if you spend that time, like I've mentioned a little bit, like, especially spending that eclipse time in, meditation or retreat or chanting mantras or some kind of spiritual practice, that's not only how we can help ourselves move forward in a better way, but heal the whole kind of ancestral line potentially, to free ourselves up, as well as the souls who've come before us and the souls who come after us, right? So anyway, I didn't know I was going to go deep into that, but this is just around the corner. So I think I feel like the energy is already there. The other thing is that again, October 2nd, because again, October 1st is the day before the eclipse, solar eclipse coming up. October 2nd is the last day of Paksha. Sorry, I can never say it correctly. Which is essentially a 2-week period where in India, where people honor their ancestors. And the last day, which is going to be on this eclipse day, and it started on the last eclipse, the lunar eclipse 2 weeks ago. That's where, people typically will honor their ancestors in some way. And I've seen that not just in Indian culture, but other cultures as well. Like I know some of my, Black African American people that I know, there's certain, usually events within their church where they take time to, think about their ancestors and honor their ancestors in certain ways. They all have different practices, but it's a way to touch the difficulties and the triumphs, and the struggle of ancestors, and to help them release that heavy negative energy because we're all connected, even when people have left their body. So, again, it's especially again with eclipses, it just, especially this year, it's yeah, pretty amazing that this is all lining up. So, again, the meditation time might be also because you can see in this chart, the moon is the owner, ruler of the fourth house of ancestors. So, so over and over and over again, right? And then you can see Mars is in the third house. Mars is a karako Mars. So Mars represents siblings and enemies, frankly. And it's in the house, the third house, representing siblings and neighbors. So Mars is a fiery planet. So this could be like, difficulties with siblings. That's what we typically see here. So again, all of this, like, and even like a lot of things going in the world today. I mean, almost none of these things is really that new. I mean, it's been going on for decades, generations, centuries, some of this stuff. So it's like, how do we actually like start to turn this around? How do we start to heal this? And part of that can be, again, honoring the contribution of our ancestors, but also, you know, through us, allowing their souls, some amount of forgiveness or cleansing or release or, whatever you want to call it, because that helps all of us. Okay. So anyway, I didn't know I was going to go there, but I guess somebody needed to hear that. All right. So back to the chart. So again, this, moon being so challenged and Uttara Falguni, it's like, this is not going to be, fun and easy time, like sunshine and unicorns in the beginning here. Okay. Because the moon's pretty, bent up with all these negative influences here. So the Dasha period is Sun, Mercury, Mars, Mercury. Well, so you can see, like, where's Sun, where's Mercury? It's right in the middle of this eclipse, and Mars is on it. So, again, it's bringing us back to the sixth house. So we can't get away from the sixth house stuff that's going on. We have a bunch of yogas in this chart. We have Balarishta yoga. We have a massive Balarishta yoga. So the Balarishta yoga, that's when you get, I typically see as 4 or more planets and negative houses. In this chart, we have 6. So that typically, Balarishta yoga can indicate, like, for like when somebody's born, it can indicate a time when there was a difficult childhood or, medical issues, and sometimes it's so strong that a child will not survive early years. Okay, so you can see this is not a time to really start anything new here. It's time to, release and let go and, go deep within. And again, I mentioned the pravraja yoga, the 4 planets and the sixth house. That's a life focused yoga. We have a Malava yoga here. So Venus in its own sign and a Kendra. So, there's some, it looks really good. Venus in its own sign, and it's also in the 7th house of relationships and spouse. So that seems really good. And it is in a lot of ways. I mean, Venus in its own sign, you're going to get the best of Venus, right? Venus is a lot of good stuff, the finer things of life and arts and socializing and compassion and diplomacy and all these lovely things. There is a little twist here, though, because Venus is Karko in the 7th house. So Venus represents things like spouse and partners, and it's in the house representing spouse and partner. So we have 2 Karko planets to begin the month with, Mars and Venus. So to me, that's indicating like plenty of trouble with relationships. Okay. Which, again, that's been the main thing. And again, with all these planets and the Virgo here, um, it will not protect the people related to this, but because Mercury is in its own sign, there will be some protection of inanimate objects. So the focus of this mix here, the pravraja yoga in the sixth house, is going to be about people and relationships. Yeah. There is also a Subhaveshi yoga in this. It's a solar yoga in this chart, and a Sunafa yoga. It's a lunar yoga, because we have the strong Venus in the second house from both the sun and the moon. That should bring things up a bit. Um, support the sun and the moon. And there's also Buddhaditya yoga here. It's not qualified, so it's a minor. I would say a minor Buddhaditya yoga. But we have strong planets here, so there's going to be some exaggeration. We have Mercury in its own sign, Venus in its own sign, Saturn in its own sign. Okay, so there'll be some exaggerated energies from those. I mentioned two karako bhava nashas. The other thing is Mars is bhavam. So even though I've been talking about the sixth house and acute issues and this and that, Mars is the lord of the eighth house here, and the eighth house is about long-term issues, and the eighth house lord's got 8 houses away. So that means one long-term issue after another. And that's what's pressing on the mind and emotions here. So like I said, a lot of the stuff going on, this is nothing new. That we see all the stuff, most of the stuff we see in the newspaper, it's not really much that's new, right? Unfortunately. So again, the solar eclipse is the day after this. And again, there's going to be, I would say, a lot of confusion. I'm seeing it with people already. Probably you are too. Like, it's just people overdoing and overthinking, over communicating, and I don't know. I have people like calling me for different appointments and stuff, and they call me, and then they change their mind. The next day they change. So it's sort of like people are kind of all over the place. And again, with so much going on, with the two mind planets here, because again, you don't have to have Mercury in the mix of an eclipse, but we do. So there's going to be a lot going on mentally, emotionally, and the other thing is 6 planets here. Let's see, Rahu, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 planets are in dual signs. And I think Venus and Saturn are the only planets not touched by a dual sign. So 7 out of, 9 planets are very dual right now. So again, a lot of confusion going on. So overall, the beginning of this month, October, we're going to be seeing a lot of relationship issues, especially I think with siblings and neighbors, because that one seems to be, because Mars is dominating in a way. Yeah, Mars is dominating Mercury. Well, there's this tension, right, between Mars and Mercury. Because Mercury is trying to contain Mars and Mercury strong, but Mars is, fighting back. And that's kind of the whole thing. Like this whole, how do we, logically and analytically perhaps move past, some of these long-term skirmishes, right? Okay, then the second chart here is October 31st, happens to be 17:08 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Excuse me. So we can see the sun and moon again by the end of the month. This moon is in the nakshatra of Swati. Swati nakshatra is, and a nakshatra is a lunar mansion. There are 27 of those. Every night the moon goes through a different lunar mansion. So at the end of 27 nights, you get a lunar month. And all of the nakshatras have different energies associated with them and symbols as well. So the moon nakshatra Swati, that's symbolized by new grown grass blowing in the wind. So it's a very fragile type of energy. I typically, when I see people with strong Swati placements, they tend to be a very nervous type of person. Like you can literally see them shaking. I mean, the phrase is shaking like a leaf, but I guess shaking like new grass blowing in the wind. And so there's like a fragile new beginning for the mind here. And again, the moon is not just the logical mind. That's Mercury, but it's the overall mind and also the emotional mind. So there's some fragility here. And moon is in the 7th house of, again, partnerships and relationships. So I think there's some new mental beginning, which might seem a little wobbly because it's new. Okay. Then the Dasha period in the second chart is Rahu, Mercury, Ketu. Well, Rahu and Ketu bring a lot of unusual, hidden, unexpected energy, and Mercury is, again, the logical mind. Another thing is Mercury here is, at this point, now in the 8th house of, deep psychology. Luckily, the 3 fiery planets are no longer on Mercury, and Mercury happens to be with a benefic, Venus, and it's aspected by another benefic of Jupiter. So it's kind of like, again, with the moon and Mercury moving into these positions, it's like a new mental, emotional beginning, trying to clean up whatever's been going on. Okay. Still have a Balarishta here, not as pronounced as the first one. I mean, there's still 4 planets in negative houses. There is still a Supavesha Yoga and a Sunafa Yoga, so the sun and moon are supported by these. Now we have 2 benefics in the 2nd house position from the sun and moon. So that should help a bit. The thing, though, so there's always like a thing, there's always like a however. What's a little concerning, okay, is that Mars is in a sign of debilitation in Cancer, as you can see. Sun is also debilitated at this time. So the 2 leadership planets, Mars and Sun, are both debilitated. So, there's leadership here, but again, it's like there's instability here. I think there's some supports, because I think by that time, I'm not sure if Mars may be in Pusha Nakshatra. Pusha is a, kind of a emotionally supportive, nurturing energy. Yeah, so, it's a new beginning, because again, we have so many, authorities and governments on different levels, from city to countries and worldwide, fighting each other right now. I think there might be some new attempt to, bring more harmony, or maybe, compromise a little bit, to kind of level, de-escalate things. I mean, that would be a great thing. And again, the ruling planet of any Aries chart is Mars. So we always gotta watch Mars. And Mars is in the 4th house of happiness, of home, ancestors, mom. So, there's instability there, but there's like it's an attempt seeking, and Mars is also the initiative planet. There's an attempt to seek happiness and support. And also freedom. The 4th house is a mokshasthana, house of freedom. So there's an attempt. It may not be a straight line because, Mars, we say vakri. When a planet's retrograde, we call it vakri. But another name for Mars is vakri because Mars it doesn't follow in the typical straight line the way other planets do. It's a little bit, that's why Mars energy is always a little bit erratic because of its travel path. So, it's almost like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, like in some sort of recovery. Um, yeah. So again, and because Mercury is in, K2 is in the 6th house again of acute issues and enemies. Rahu's in the 12th house of losses and expenditures. Mercury here is again in the 8th house of deep psychology with the 2 benefics on it. So it's like, how do we do things differently? Because it's like, we can't keep escalating. I mean, otherwise we're all going to be gone, So we got to rein this in, somehow. The other thing is that Mercury's aspecting the 2nd house of family, inner circle, communication. So again, especially with 3 benefics in both the 8th house and the 2nd house, that's, I think, some hope that things will improve. Yeah. Okay, so that's first of the month, last of the month, and how things are shifting. Okay, so let's talk about the planets now. So moon, I always have separate videos on the moon. So look out for those. October 2nd, again, the solar eclipse. I've been talking a lot about the solar eclipse. I'm not sure I have to say too much more. Maybe just the technical stuff. So the solar eclipse is going to be happening in Virgo or Kanya and Hasta Nakshatra. So the Virgo is a friendly or mitra sign for moon, so that supports the moon. It's a dual earth sign, so the mind is going to be thinking contrastingly about very practical things. The solar eclipse is happening, it's visible kind of from the mid-Pacific Ocean, in the mid-Pacific Ocean, like sort of close to Hawaii, and it kind of goes down to the tip of South America. So it's mostly going to be in Chile and Argentina where the largest amount of obscuration is going to happen. And as you've seen, the sun or the moon is going to be with the sun, and it's going to be with the compass Mercury and K2, and all of these planets are going to be in Hasta, which is kind of crazy. Hasta nakshatra is symbolized by a hand. So hand is all about literally being handy, and like because it's in a dual nakshatra, it's like sorting through things, what stays, what goes. And then again, the aspect by Mars and Jupiter. So that's going to be a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of energy, and also potentially a lot of legal things going on there. And so I was just seeing this as like really like a total reset of mind and direction. So mind because of the two mind planets, but also direction because you have the two leadership planets as well. On October 17th, there's going to be a new moon in Aries or Mesha and Ashwini nakshatra. This is a neutral sign for moon. It's a movable fire sign, Char Agni. So it's a lot of action going on with the moon here. Like again, this is kind of getting like with what I was talking about with the moon and Swati. Like there's some new beginning, mental new beginning going on here at the end of the month. The thing though is that the exact position of moon during this new moon, it's going to be Gandanta, meaning it's in the first couple degrees or so of Aries. So that means it's going to be an unstable moon. So again, fragile beginning, like we saw moon is in Swati, even like a week or so out, a couple weeks out from this new moon. And the sun is going to be debilitated. So that's going to, just bring a lot of things down in a way. Because the sun represents things like soul and career and purpose and general health. But with the sun aspecting in the Aries, sun is going to be exalted in Aries. So there's going to be a lot of push and leadership to, start something new because Ashwini is very, very much a pioneering energy. It's also a rescuing energy. Okay, so again, we're in this kind of recovery mode. And then there's going to be a combust Mercury aspecting here. So we still got, so both of the mind planets are going through this, reboot that seems to be going on here. So there's going to be attention in starting some new endeavor, versus like, I would say gaining supporters here. I think that's because of the orientation of the chart I was looking at with the new moon. Okay, but so the moon is very much showing different levels of confluence here. Okay. So yeah. Okay, so on this slide we have the slow-moving planets. So Jupiter or Guru, Saturn or Shani, Rahu and Ketu. October 2nd, again, the solar eclipse is going to involve a Rahu Ketu. You can see the previous slides for that. October 3rd, Saturn enters Shatabisha nakshatra. So Saturn's going retrograde, and it's currently in Purva Drapada, which nakshatra, which is symbolized by a funeral pyre. And so, combustion and literally like death, cremation, all those sorts of energies associated with that nakshatra. And Saturn represents things like, chronic illness and death. So, that's part of why things have, literally, gotten, I think, really intense lately because of that. So when Saturn moves into Shatabisha, it'll probably be like a tad bit better, maybe, but in a different way. So Shatabisha is translated as 100 healers. And Shatabisha nakshatra is associated with like this energy of like things that are difficult to heal, especially when you have Saturn there and difficult to diagnose and stuff. So this is kind of more so it might just be a matter of personal preference. Like, would you prefer things to just be like black and white and over and done with, like one way or the other, even if things are just, blown to bits? Or would you prefer something where it's like slow and lingering and like mysterious and, I almost think of, not that it has to mean this, but it's sort of like the energy of like when people are going through like cancer treatment or something. I mean, that's an emotional roller coaster for most people, and so they kind of live from test to test and procedure to procedure, and it takes a toll, like mentally and physically and emotionally, typically for them and the people close to them, supporting them through the process. So, and it's like there's a lot of unknowns, and it's kind of slow and lingering. So it's kind of like that, which again may be preferable, depending again on what you're dealing with. But Saturn is still what Saturn is. So there might be as I wrote here, there might be a slight reprieve, but kind of more mysterious and lingering type energy. And then Saturn ends its retrograde November 15th. So we've got a little bit more than a month um, of Saturn. And then the thing is, after that, Saturn goes straight through the rest of Aquarius, and then it's done with Aquarius at the end of what is it, March here. So we've got about 6 months left of Saturn in Aquarius, which again, it probably people are like, yeah, let's move on. Well, let's move on from this energy. But again, at least Saturn is not in Aries where it's debilitated. So that would be a whole other like thing, potentially. The other thing is that, Saturn is what Saturn is. I know a lot of people like fear Shani, worry about Shani a lot, and that's the nature of Shani. Like, Shani's formidable as a planet for sure. But the thing is, at least Saturn is in its own sign. So it's strong, but when Saturn's in its own sign, there's usually still something. You might have to dig for it, you might have to wait for it, but there's usually still something good that came out of that experience as negative or, and, hard as, as long as it seemed to be. Yeah. So, so yeah, Saturn's shifting, shifting its energy. October 8th, Jupiter has an exact aspect on Mercury. So this should be a little bit of a lift for Mercury that, it just went through this eclipse thing, gauntlet here. And so Jupiter is in Mrigashira nakshatra, so there's a seeking energy. So seeking new structure, rhythm, process, because I believe at that time Mercury's in Shatra, nakshatra, chitra is all about structure. So new seeking new structure, rhythm, process for the mind, communication, travel, so things that Mercury represents. October 9th, Jupiter goes retrograde or vakri, which may be nice because we like it when Jupiter's strong. And that'll be through February 4th, 2025. So that'll be a nice, what is it? October, November, December. Yeah, what is a good 3 months? 4 months, actually. 4 months, yeah. October 10th, K2 ends its 5-9 aspects, and I'm pretty sure most of us are like, yay. Hallelujah here, because Mercury when it goes 5-9 or Rahu when it goes 5-9, it's like it brings a lot of chaos. Mercury is going to, and that happens because Mercury moves away from K2, because K2 is in Mercury's sign. So, and again, K2 when it does the 5-9 aspect, it's currently in an Earth sign, so it's aspecting other Earth signs. So there's a lot of physical chaos and damage going on. So that'll probably, rein in a little bit. October 13th, although, K2 is not all bad. K2 can be like spirituality, it also can be like detachment. It can also be like, rebelliousness. And sometimes you need rebelliousness because otherwise, because the current structure is just so messed up. It's like, okay, and we'll talk actually, one of the charts I talk about, we'll see that K2 is essential for what he did in life and his contribution to humanity, which is pretty outstanding, actually. So we'll look at that. Yeah, so October 13th, Jupiter and Mars, they both have a direct aspect on the Sun at the same time. So that's very interesting because the Sun has not moved into Libra yet, where it will be debilitated, although it'll be aspecting its exaltation sign of Aries. The other thing is when I was looking for like birth charts, famous birth charts to analyze for this monthly video, there seemed like a lot more than on average, like a number of countries that had their independence in October, which is the time in which Sun typically is in is it? Libra, where it's debilitated, and aspecting Aries, where it's exalted. So we have this like, weak, exaggerated weak government, strong government. And so again, that's what so anyway, so again, it looks like there might be a changing of the guard here. Especially because Jupiter and Mars, I mean, again, Mars and Sun together, both fiery planets, that can be like military energy. Jupiter and Mars together can be law, legal energy. So this could be the rise, beginning or end of some kind of authoritative structure, whether it's the whole government or whether it's some kind of authority. Job, boss, could be your boss, that kind of thing. October 28th, excuse me, Saturn has an exact aspect on Venus. So again, a super strong Saturn. This can bring, I think, some difficulties to Venus. So again, relationships and stuff like that. Venus is going to be in Jesta, so there's some defensive energy here with relationships. But this might be like Saturn's going to be in Shatabisha by then. So I think there might be more of like a, what's really going on, in this relationship, kind of some lingering issue that's not entirely resolved. There might be some, I think, attempt to understand and heal the relationship because Jupiter is going to be aspecting Venus, and at the end of the month, Mercury is going to be there as well. So again, this is kind of getting into like the charts I was showing at of the beginning and the end of the month, because this is close to the end of the month, where it's like there's some change here, with Saturn. Like there's some structural change here with how things have been going with one or more relationships. Um, yeah. So those are the slow moving planets. Okay, so here is a famous birth chart, and this just happened a few days ago. It was kind of a cool moment, but also, I mean, the energy has been pretty intense, and so the eclipse energies have been fairly intense. And I think most people, when they hear or think of eclipse, they think, oh, it's all going to hit the fan, and sometimes that happens, but sometimes things blow up or implode in like a good way. And so, if you watch my eclipse video, talk about how sometimes what happens with eclipses is you get people, like extraordinary people, who literally are born as like kings or queens of the world. Like Prince Charles, for example, was born during an eclipse, and his son, Prince William, was born during an eclipse. So it's like literal, very literal there. And also, I mentioned in my eclipse video that typically you'll get, because Rahu and Ketu bring this like unexpected, bizarre energy. And sometimes an unexpected, bizarre energy can be going beyond the limits we thought were possible for humans, And this is one of those, like, and moments where this is a sports moment. And typically what happens, I've seen, like, whenever I watch documentaries or some movie that's talking, that involves like the story of some like massive like sports upset and bizarre victory, or like, it was raining cats and dogs and somehow they scored, I don't know, 12 goals or whatever it is. I've noticed a lot of times it happens around eclipses. So anyway, this is one of those moments. Okay, so this is the chart for when Shohei Ohtani. So if you follow American baseball at all, Shohei Ohtani is like this Japanese player who plays for the LA Dodgers in California. And he just made history on September 19th at 18:57 p.m. in Miami, Florida. You can see the details below this chart. And this moment is for when Major League Baseball, so the authorities of baseball and the LA Dodgers, both within a minute of each other, posted on X, social media, that he had just created the 50-50 Club. That's what they've been calling it. So the 50-50 Club refers to 50 stolen bases and 50 home runs. He stole 50 home bases and had 50 home runs in one season. He's the only human being to do this in the history of baseball, not just like American, but I think worldwide. I mean, that's like phenomenal. I mean, that's like mind blowing. And like kind of cool and fun, So I thought, well, here you go. So, the eclipses aren't all bad. Yeah. So we try to keep an open mind, right, all around. So for this chart, you can see we have a Aquarius rising chart. Oh, I probably should have done that when I did the first and last of the month. I think I've been forgetting that lately. So anyway, in my, let me step back a little bit. So all of my charts I use are North Indian style charts. Okay. And I always start the analysis in the lugna, also known as the ascendant, rising sign, or first house, because the lugna sets the tone for the rest of the chart. Okay. Now, in a North Indian style chart, as you see here, the rising sign, first house, lugna, all different names for the same thing, are in the top diamond in the middle. Okay, you can see there's like, it's almost covered up, but there's a little 11 in the bottom corner there. But 11 signifies the 11th constellation of the zodiac, or Aquarius. So this is an Aquarius rising chart. Okay. And so this massive Saturn, it's retrograde. So not only is Saturn in its own sign, but it's retrograde, so it's a double strength. And Saturn is in this Purva Bhadrapada energy of like a funeral pyre. So this guy decimated, like cremated previous records, because Saturn also represents antiquity and history. So he's blowing up history. The other thing is Mercury. You can see Mercury's aspecting here from the 7th house. So Saturn and Mercury are mutually aspecting each other. Mercury represents news, communication, and also games. Well, more games. So usually when you have Mars and Mercury together, you get more, like more sports, like physical games. But so he's breaking history in some game here. And there's news about it because, again, we have the MLB, Major League Baseball, and LA Dodgers both tweeting about this thing. Okay. I mean, that's pretty amazing. So even this massive Saturn, again, a lot of people, um, fear Shani, and Shani is formidable again, but Shani is working really well here. The other thing is I looked at Shohei Ohtani's chart, and if you can believe it, which actually, if you're an astrologer, you should be able to believe it, he has Saturn in Aquarius. So this is basically like a recreation on some level of Shohei Ohtani's chart. I mean, it's not, I don't know, I didn't go deep into it, but the one thing I did see right away was that he does have Saturn in Aquarius. So that's probably why, things lit up for him at this time. Okay, so let's go through. So Lugna Nakshatra, again, Purva Bhadrapada. So again, shift and, destruction of history here. Sun Nakshatra is an Uttara Falguni, so enjoyment with a purpose. So it's a game, but he had a goal here. He had a mission here, Everybody's like rooting for him. Rah, rah, go, go, And then Moon here is in the nakshatra Revati. Revati is all about, as the last nakshatra, it's all about hospitality and travel and that sort of thing. And it's in the second house here of also oral communication. And Rahu is here with the moon. Rahu can indicate like technology and also ambition here. So communication, public communication through technology about ambition here. And again, this was an away game for him. It wasn't in LA. It happened in Miami. They were playing at Miami's team. And, travel was involved for hospitality, right? All the drinks and the things, for mostly the people watching and stuff like that. The thing that you can see, Moon is Gandanta here. So it's in the last degree of a transition from a water sign to a fire sign. So that can be a very unstable energy. So there is an instability here. I think part of that instability is just like the moon represents the public. People are going crazy. Probably, in the stadium, whoever was into baseball, whatever. The other thing is that's also, I think, important because the moon is just leaving what we call a sati pattern. So when Saturn is in sign, or when the moon is in the sign before, or sorry, it's the other way around. When the moon is in the sign before, of, or after Saturn, you get what's called a sati, and sati can be like it's a 7.5 year period. A lot of people are also afraid of that. The only thing that's really super common about sati is that you tend to lose like a big support system. And so the big support system, I think, was like, the previous records here. But you can see that's like just a few minutes out from, being done with it. So the day lord is Jupiter. Jupiter represents speech, oral communication, publication. So again, all this news, all these people cheering. The Hora Lord, our Lord is Mercury. So again, writing, communication, games, that sort of thing. And Jupiter and Mercury together are also education, so letting people know about this extraordinary moment. Bertasha, Mercury, Saturn, Rahu, Saturn. So again, this Mercury, Saturn, breaking game history, Rahu, ambition, and literally changing the game or game history here, baseball history. And this chart again recreates a current sky pattern just happened a few days ago. So Saturn, Swan, retrograde in Aquarius, Jupiter in Taurus, Mars in Gemini, Sun, Ketu in Virgo, Venus, Swan, Libra. And then Mars. That's the other thing. That's why I put those in boxes so you can see Mars just past the same degree because Mars is aspecting Ketu here in the 8th house, and Mars in explosive energy as well as Ketu. And Mars a few days before this, because this happened 2 days after the last, or a day or two after the last eclipse. Mars was exactly aspecting K2 during the last eclipse, and that brought a lot of explosive energy literally around the world. And this is one of those explosions, but it's like a good explosion, except maybe for the previous record holder here. Most people, I think, would see this as like a very cool moment. Definitely history making in a new way. So Mars had a exact aspect on K2, and you can see Saturn and Mercury too. So again, just the day or two before during the eclipse, Mercury and Saturn had an exact aspect as well. So again, that's where that, collision of those energies, that, combustive energy, was even more acute, had more strength to it, more gunpowder, to light the fire. So let's just go through pretty quickly here through the different houses. So again, Aquarius or Kumbha rising sign is a fixed air sign. So Sthira. So this is like fixed ideas. Like, probably a lot of people didn't think it was possible for anybody to do this because he's the first person in history to do this. The Lugnatia is Saturn, so Swa retrograde, but it's also Bhavam, Saturn in its own sign. Their first lord going one house away. So basically, the first lord in the first house is a Bhavam Saturn. So it's all about personal development. Yeah, I mean, this is basically putting Shohei Ohtani in a whole new category, or putting baseball, the whole sport of baseball in a whole new category here of possibilities. And again, Saturn's aspected by Mercury. Mercury's in Purva Falguni. Again, Purva Falguni is all about like enjoyment and fun and stuff like that. So a fun game here. And Sun is in Uttar Falguni. So Uttar Falguni again is enjoyment with a purpose. So that was his whole goal here. But Sun also represents career and again fire. So all this fire in the 8th house. This is probably Shohei Ohtani's mind. It was like, I'm gonna kill it today. And he's been trying to get this, thing before the end of the season, right? Because they're almost at the end here. And then that Sun was aspecting the 2nd house of oral communication, as well as like inner circle and things like that. So end of a paradigm, when we put this all together, end of a paradigm, written record, enjoyment of purpose, self-development. Also, the first house is a Dharmasthana, so house of duty. And I don't know, maybe because he's Japanese, or just whoever who he is, regardless of being Japanese. Maybe, his, because embedded in, Japanese culture, I mean, I was a Japanese major in college. Embedded in Japanese culture is this idea of like perfecting one's craft. And so this for him, might have been that, bringing that, especially I think it's a Shinto-based part of culture that tends to embed itself in Japanese culture that way. So maybe he thought as his duty to perfect his baseball game to level it up to this extent, So the Lugnatia nakshatra is also Sundhi. Let me see. Yeah, so the Lugnatia you can see is about to shift from Aquarius to Pisces, so that also brings some instability here. But again, instability that's good, broke the whole system down to create something new and maybe better. There's a Shasha Yoga here because Saturn's in its own sign, and a Kendra, so that's going to bring power. There's Saraswati yoga here, so creativity. So that's probably the people writing, writing and posting pictures on social media, and knowledge here. And then there's a Subo Vichari yoga. That's a solar yoga, and a parivartana yoga as well. Where's the parivartana yoga? Oh, there's a parivartana yoga between Mercury and Sun. So, yeah, leadership in games, enjoyable games here. So power, creativity, knowledge, inspiring leadership. Again, maybe sati sati, but just about over here. And the second house lord is Jupiter. Jupiter's in Mrigashirsha, so there's a seeking energy. We have a just past fully eclipsed moon in Rahu. Rahu's in Uttar, so there's a let's say like a release of I say like a conscious release of destruction here. So this is like an intended, like an intended outcome here, aspected by Sun and Mercury. So ambition to host the public, game leadership, public broadcast news, mental and emotional shock as well. The third house lord is Mars and Ardra. So that's an electric energy, literally. So this is going to be like a shock, physical shock, also like performance shock, because Mars is in the fifth house of like stage. So it's a physical, like shocking physical events. And let's see, this third house is aspected by debilitated Saturn and a Swa Venus in Chitra. So this is like crafting electrical, digital, end of written record history. So again, this is this posting. Because the thing is, the moment that I chose was the posting of the news on a digital media platform. So we're going to pick up some of that energy. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of electricity, like in stadium, like in an electric moment, and that's a part of this. But because whenever I analyze news events, because sometimes you don't know the exact moment. I was looking for the exact moment. I didn't see anybody post the exact moment, but the closest thing I got to an exact moment was when these two big players posted on social media. So I was like, well, this is pretty close. So there's going to be a lot of overlap with the exact moment and then the posting of the moment. So if you also do charts and stuff like that, if you're basing it off of news reporting, when the news is reported, you're going to pick up the intentions and ambition of the people posting as well, and manner in which they post. Okay. So let's see. Yeah. So then the fourth house lord is Venus, which is Swa. And there's Jupiter there. That's two benefics. That's a lot of happiness, cheer at home, through history, the happy ancestors, happy home. I think even the Miami team, like it was funny when I was reading, they said the Miami coach, everybody thought the Miami coach they were gonna try to walk this guy. And his response was like, I have too much respect. Like, I don't want to be the one jerk, who blocks this guy, like this moment in history is bigger than this particular win, essentially was what he was saying. He's like, I'm not going to walk this guy. We're going to pitch as best we can, and it's up to him what he does with it. And and then he got 50-50 club thing. So that was kind of cool. So, kudos to the, Miami coach. I thought that was pretty, you know, as true sportsman there, in terms of like knowing what was really important in that moment. So the fifth house lord is Mercury. And we have a bhavat bhavam Mars, and Mars is bhavat bhavam. Oh, from the third house. So this is like, this is proliferation of written communication. So the tweets are gonna, everybody's gonna share the tweets and stuff like that. Amplifying a written message, business and stuff like that. It is it's the business of both of these organizations, the Major League Baseball and LA Dodgers, to, publicize their stuff, Then the sixth house lord is Mercury. Oh, sorry, Moon, and that's Gandanta there. So there's a temporary big emotional shift in public and speech. So this is everybody like cheering in the crowd and then posting on their phone and all this kind of stuff. Seventh lord is Sun, again parivartana with Mercury. Mercury in exact aspect with Saturn. So some leader there's like leading business partners, and also a change of guard here. So this is the change of new and old records, but also the leadership of this particular player of Shohei Ohtani. The sun is going to be Swan on Leo when you do the parivartana in Mercury here. So there's still, even though sun is in the 8th house, it looks like it's in the 8th house. You're going to see this like sun and Leo massive leadership breaking old records here. Yeah. Then the 8th house lord is Mercury. You have Sun and Ketu here in Hasta, exact aspect of Mars. So this is like the 8th house is like deep psychology. This is literally like blowing people's minds about this moment here and what he accomplished. Then the 9th house lord, that lord is Swa Venus. That's creativity. So again, the creative authority organization. This is like Major League Baseball and LA Dodgers, like, you know, and also other authorities like congratulating him and sharing the news and all this kind of stuff. And even the other, like the Miami coach or whatever. You know, I mean, I'm sure all those players are just like, dude, that was like totally awesome what you just did. So, you know, I mean, I'm sure they weren't happy to lose a game, but if you're going to lose a game, this is the way you want to lose it, I think, you know, to somebody like extraordinary like this, where you're just like sort of like privileged to be in the same space as them when this happens. I mean, you know, it's hard to probably have another amazing moment like this, you know, just to like see it live in front of you happen, you know. Then the 10th house, 10th house lord is Mars again, aspected by Jupiter and Saturn. So there's probably some mixed emotions here. You know, surprise and happiness and that sort of thing, because Jupiter and Saturn are on opposite sides of the spectrum regarding emotion. So, and 11th house lord is Jupiter. It's aspected by Mars. So again, this electricity going through the active crowd. The 11th house is clubs, group, society. So all the baseball people are probably like, whoa, look at what just happened. It finally happened, you know. That's totally cool. And then the 12th house lord is Saturn. And the house is aspected by a debilitated Jupiter here, exalted Mars. So this is going to be like all this news traveling around the world, you know, sports news traveling around the world. So again, first and only person in baseball history, Shohei Ohtani, to score 50 stolen bases, 50 home runs in a single season. The other thing that's so interesting here, I mean, 50-50, that's a dual. It's not just 50 stolen bases, it's not just 50 home runs. But as I was saying at the beginning of the month of October, you have all these planets in dual signs. So he has this is a dual accomplishment. So I thought that was kind of cute, you know, from an astrology point of view. And then also, again, an example of eclipses bringing good things. And again, often new world records, you know, tend to happen around eclipses and stuff. What was I going to say? I had a note here. Um, this is this is also kind of funny. So when I was doing this analysis, there was some news as well, which was also baseball, and this was you know, regarding the White Sox teams of Chicago. So apparently, so this is another weird moment in baseball history happening about the same time. But you can see clearly this was happening, probably in a um, maybe different Lugna, maybe not. I don't know, but it's kind of funny. Like this is a different variation of this chart essentially, because it's not going to happen at the exact same time, and probably not the same Lugna, but maybe. But the White Sox baseball team, they've been losing consistently. Like they had a streak of 121 game losses. Now this is funny to me because I used to live in Chicago, and the teams in Chicago are hilarious. Like they have all these like weird curses, like the Billy Goat curse, and all this kind of like. There's some weird history and funny history of like baseball in Chicago. So apparently the White Sox were like, okay, they were heading towards like another loss here, and I think they were playing at home. So the White Sox team, you know, this White Sox crowd was just like, okay, you know, sell. They were holding up signs, you know, telling the owner of the White Sox like, sell the team, like it's so bad, like. And then somebody got a run on the White Sox team, and then they ended up winning the game. And then what happened is instead of the fans cheering like finally we won a game, they start booing. They're really, I don't know, it's just such a like it's just such a like funny again Chicago baseball moment. So again, that's weird, strange. Like how many times have you heard like, the home crowd like saying, "Sell the team, they're so bad, we've lost so much." Blah, blah, blah. So anyway, it's also like a bizarre eclipse moment here in baseball history. So I'm not even like a big baseball fan, but I know enough of it to, I guess, get by and appreciate the big moments, I guess. There you go. So a positive moment during this pretty heavy eclipse time. Okay, so what's Venus doing this month? Venus or Shukra, October 4th. Venus enters Vishaka Nakshatra. Vishaka is about, victory, but victory at all costs. So this might be kind of a tough win here with relationships because that's Venus. Venus is Swa, so Venus will be strong. It's in Libra or Tula. So it'll, again, strength here. So this might be about considering a new creative venture here. But again, relationships may be a bit regressive or one-sided because again, there's too much force typically with the Vishaka energy. Then October 12th, Venus enters Scorpio Vrishika. This is a neutral sign for Venus. It's a fixed water sign, so pretty steady emotions here. Again, it's going to be aspected by Swa retrograde Saturn and a mutual aspect by Jupiter. So the Jupiter should really bring some good vibes here to Scorpio. Um, the other thing is Venus is going to be aspecting Taurus. So Venus and Jupiter are going to be supporting each other, and Venus probably supporting Jupiter a little bit more than the other way around. Um, but again, Saturn and Jupiter are two very different energies influencing Venus. It may feel like different opposing forces are drawing attention in relationships, like there may be some tension there. Um, but Venus and Jupiter are not only the two natural benefics, but they're also the two advisors. So I would imagine that there's more good advice coming through regarding especially practical matters because Jupiter is in Taurus, and also emotional matters because Venus is in Scorpio. And again, we have this like, really strong Saturn. So it looks like maybe again, there's some possibility of improving this really deep, long, protracted, strong Saturn business that we've all been dealing with in some way or another. I mean, some of us, probably more than others, right? Especially if we're running Saturn currently. Then October 15th, Venus enters Anuradha Nakshatra. So that should be nice because Anuradha is also a victory nakshatra, but it's about through victory through diplomacy and building alliances. So that should soften things a little bit. And then Venus enters Jyeshtha Nakshatra, so that's a protection energy. So Venus is going to, kind of shift a bit here. Venus is going to be like relations might get into more of a defensive protective mode. This could also potentially mean like some sort of spiritual art is being, uplifted here. Because Jesta, it has this protective energy, like the symbol of that is a talisman, like for a more, mundane situation like a cop or military personnel, or where they have like the badges and the medals and everything, where they signify their, role in life. But Jesta can also be like the talisman, like of a shaman. And especially because we have Jupiter aspecting here. That's a very spiritual energy. So it might be that somebody, for those people who are creative types, they might like gravitate towards some new kind of spiritual art. Yeah. And then Saturn will have an exact aspect on Venus on the 20th of October. So this could be a disruption energy, but also difficulty with loved ones and or other things that Venus represents, like the arts, vehicles, travel, pets, that sort of thing. There might be an end here to a relationship potentially. But with Jupiter and Venus both involved here, that'll cushion the blow, I would say, if there is something like that going on. Okay, then Mercury, Buddha, October 6th, Mercury enters Chitra Nakshatra. That's a structure, architecture type energy. And Mars is going to have a direct aspect. So there might be, uh, unfortunately, like a destruction of a structure involving Mercury. So it could be like education, it could be travel, it could be like the public meeting place. Those are all different places associated with Mercury. This could also be like a mental structures here. So, the thing though is that this is happening with Sun and Ketu. So again, Mercury, Moon, Sun, Ketu mixed with Mars, and then Jupiter's aspecting here as well. There's going to be a lot of mental spinning here, confusion, even like OCD, obsessive compulsive type energy, mind spinning like a top. I mean, I've noticed for myself, like some days, like in the last week or so, I've been like, where is my mind going? It's hard to just keep my mind steady and clear a lot of times, more so in the last 2 weeks. So again, this could be a beginning or end with this direct aspect here of unusual communication, travel, and authority structures, kind of like more of that, kind of the trailing end of that eclipse energy. Then October 8th, Mercury is a direct aspect by Jupiter. So I think there's some search for improvement to the above. So the mind spinning stuff, Again, this might be a more spiritual approach to helping calm things down mentally and emotionally. October 10th, Mercury enters Libra Tula. It will be with the swa Venus for a few days, so that should be nice. A little boost in communication, travel, advice, kind of the overlap of Mercury, Venus stuff. October 14th, Mercury enters Swati Nakshatra. So this is going to, again, that new fragile, new grass energy, new educational or business endeavor, I would say, because of Mercury. October 22nd, Mercury enters Vishaka and also leaves combustion. So the mind might be really seeking victory here, but like at a win at all costs type way. But businesses, business partners, communications might are going to externalize more. So rather than being more internal and thinking and choosing and deciding and planning, now it's time to bring those thoughts out. And there'll be, some kind of success here, but again, it might be kind of a harsh success or success, with some, unintended, or maybe quite known consequences that are negative. October 29th, Mercury enters Scorpio Vrishika. So again, oh, no, I'm sorry. I need to correct that on the slide. Never mind. And also, I should, it's on the slide, but I should correct it. It's in the wrong place. But basically, when Mercury enters Libra on October 10th, that's going to end that K259 aspect. So that's going to be important. But on October 29th, Mercury enters Scorpio. There's going to be conjoined with Venus. That'll be nice. It'll be aspected by Saturn and Jupiter. So again, the three benefics here. And with Venus and Jupiter there, Mercury will also be a benefic. So again, much thinking and talk and success and finding creative solutions to this long-term problem thing that Saturn's been bringing us. October 31st, Mercury enters Anuradha Nakshatra. So again, a positive, inclusive communication, business networking, building alliances, all that kind of stuff. So, Mercury's especially with Mercury stepping out of this box. I mean, Mercury's strong in Virgo, so that's nice. But when it steps out of that box with Sun and Mars and Ketu, I mean, that's a lot of stress on Mercury, yeah. And then you can see it's going to get better and also, I think, produce more positive results towards the end of the month here. Okay, so there's another famous birth chart. This is the birth chart of Ray Kroc. Well, not the birth chart, but the moon. This is a Chandra Lugna, so moon rising chart for Ray Kroc. So I don't know how many of you know Ray Kroc, but Ray Kroc has most likely touched your life at some point. So Ray Kroc, he's often called the founder of McDonald's food chain, but he was not the founder. He actually, there are a couple of brothers out in California who set up a hamburger stand, and he met them. And then what he did was he franchised the business of these two brothers. But the franchise business of McDonald's took off like wildfire. So he was essentially the one who globalized the presence of McDonald's in the world. So most people have been by to get some fries or a Big Mac or maybe a swirly cone. Um, so yeah, so Ray Kroc basically expanded McDonald's globally. Okay. His chart is pretty wild. So yeah, for you astrology folks out there, like this is gonna be a good one, I think. So let's just take a look, and you can see like there's double. I can't stop laughing. This chart was just like so wild as an astrologer to read. So you can see there's almost twice as many arrows. I guess I'm going to give the good stuff away in the beginning. There are twice as many arrows here in this chart. The reason why is that if you see at the bottom here in purple, he has 3 parivartana yogas in his chart. I mean, that's crazy. That's very rare. Um, this is only the second birth chart I've seen with 3 parivartana yogas. The other person with the 3 parivartana yogas that I've seen is Indira Gandhi, the former Prime Minister of India. So that alone, if we say nothing else about that chart, that should tell you a lot about this chart. That means 6 out of 9 planets through Parivartana are going to be in their own sign. Very strong planets here. Very even. And usually when people have strong planets like that, their lives are pretty exaggerated. Okay. So, in addition, I'll just mention this now. You can see that the sun is pretty close to Rahu here. It's getting close to, it's what about 13, 14 degrees here. Um, so the thing is that, Rahu's always retrograde, so it's moving closer to the sun. Sun's moving closer. There's going to be a total lunar eclipse happening on October 17th, 1902. So he was born on October 5th, and then 12 days later, there's a total lunar eclipse. So that's the second piece of news. Okay. For this guy's chart. I mean, if you were the person who took McDonald's globally from like one little hamburger stand in California, this is how you do it. This is the kind of astrological power you need to do that. Okay, so let's go through. So Ray Kroc, um, was born October 5th, 1902. I don't have a birth time for him. He was born in Oak Park, Illinois. So outside of Chicago, I don't know, there seems to be a Chicago theme for today. Maybe Chicago's birth chart was similar to the current sky pattern. So I'm using a moon rising chart here. Now the thing is that the moon was in Scorpio. This is a Scorpio rising chart, as you can almost see. I think you can still see the 8 in the little bottom corner of the lugna there. The moon was in Scorpio all day except first 47 minutes. So I'm guessing statistically, the moon should be in Scorpio. And it makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways. Even if the moon is in, um, Libra, still works pretty well. Okay. So again, maybe it's not the right moon Chandra lugna, but I'm guessing it probably is. Okay, so the sun nakshatra is in Hasta. So the sun is like a president, right? Head, royalty, king, and essentially he was like the king of hamburgers. Or franchising hamburgers, and also that was the other thing is like real estate. That was really where his business took off. It wasn't in selling hamburgers, and that's where actually McDonald's makes most of their money. They make some money, selling hamburgers and French fries and milkshakes or whatever. But what he ended up doing that was different from the brother owners, original owners or founders, true founders of McDonald's, is that when he started franchising. He added an additional he made his own business called, I think, McDonald Corporation or Real Estate Corporation or something like that, where basically it was up to before he changed things, it was up to the franchisees to figure out choose their own land site and then take out a lease on the land, on the property or whatever. So he stepped in and he formed the McDonald's, whatever corporation to do that. So basically, most of the profits that McDonald's makes is through leasing the land and the building because McDonald's owns all the land where the McDonald's, whatever establishment is. So they make money not just off the hamburgers and the French fries, but they make money off the land and property that they lease to the franchisees. And that's really where, McDonald's makes its money. Besides, I mean, if you think about it, where is McDonald's? I mean, McDonald's has like the best land almost anywhere. Like they're in the center of every major town. They're on the side of the highway. You know what I mean? Like they have the best property locations. So anyway. Okay, so Sun, Hasta, hands-on leader here, hands-on president. So he was definitely involved in, and all the nitty-gritty details here. The moon nakshatra. So it was a little bit of a mix here. So if he was born before 724, the moon was in Vichika, which makes a lot of sense for him, actually. I mean, it was hard to say. I'm not sure it's super critical. It makes a lot of sense, though, Vichika's, because again, it's like winning at all costs. Um, Other things in his chart indicate that he was a pretty aggressive guy. Um, but Honorata also makes sense because, through his establishments, I mean, it brings a lot of people together. And it's also like usually at like travel locations, is where they pop up. So either way, there's victory here, but is it like the victory is through like, win at all costs, which could very well be the case, or like, we're gonna, you know, um, create victory through building bridges. And I think he was both. So I think that's probably why this day makes a little sense in terms of, straddling the nakshatras here. Okay. Yeah, so the day lord was sun for the most part, except for the first few hours. The hora lord, our lord, I don't know. The lugna nakshatra, I don't know because we don't have an exact birth time. Birth to Shah, he was probably, born in Saturn. Which makes sense because you can see that there's also a sadhisat, probably a sadhisati here. If the moon was in Scorpio, which again, except for the first 47 minutes, it would have been in Scorpio, then he was born into sadhisati, which would have been a difficult childhood, which I'm guessing is the case. I don't actually know because if you look at his Wikipedia page, you can tell it's completely scrubbed. There's for everything he's accomplished, there's very little information about him. So there was some hidden energy about him. Now, again, that makes sense as a Scorpio because Scorpios tend to like to hide, like a scorpion does. It like hides under rocks and it hides in holes typically. Um, and they also like secrets typically. So, and then we have this lunar eclipse coming. So Rahu and Ketu are going to influence, you know, a lot of this here because in 2 weeks you're going to straddle the eclipse that's happening is going to straddle Virgo, Libra, Pisces, Aries here, and it's going to involve Mercury and Venus. So there's a lot of hidden energy in his chart. Also, Mercury represents business, and Venus represents like hospitality and that sort of thing. And you can see the double-sided arrow here. There's a parivartana between Mercury and Venus here. So there's a lot of stuff underneath the hood of this guy and his businesses, frankly. Because again, most people when they think McDonald's, they don't think, oh, largest real estate, conglomeration in the world. They think hamburgers and French fries. And even the name, like he said, part of the reason why he likes McDonald's, the why he ended up buying the partnership from the brothers. I mean, there's a whole story there. Is essentially a hostile takeover, from what I understand. But he said part of the reason why he really liked McDonald's, besides the main kind of innovation of the McDonald's franchise before he got involved, Ray Kroc got involved, was that the two brothers were like hyper efficient types. Like they got rid of car hops. Like at that time, it was kind of trendy for people to sit in the car for the usually waitresses or whatever to come out on roller skates even and bring the food and take the orders, and it would take forever and they get it wrong a lot of times. So that was a lot of overhead in terms of employment. And then also, like most people, when you went to a restaurant, you always had a plate and a cup and a fork that needed to be washed. And so they would get destroyed or they would get broken or stolen or whatever. So there was a lot of overhead there. And then also, the process, it was very, even though it was just one store, it was very like process oriented, almost like an Amazonified, like hamburger process where they had like always 2 pickle slices and a exact, cooking time for the meat and the French fries and all this. Like it was down to like that kind of engineering science essentially, which made it very efficient. So you could like walk up to a window and get your order like in 30 seconds. That was their goal, which was completely different and innovative from anybody else. Like, and that's what caught Ray Kroc's attention, the business process. But the other thing that caught his attention was the name of McDonald's, because he was a son of immigrants, or at least I think an immigrant father, from Czechoslovakia. And he said, apparently he said like he liked the name McDonald's because it seemed so wholesome and family oriented and stuff like that. Like, he said he never could have made created a restaurant in his own name. Like, who would go to a restaurant named Croc's? Like it's just not, I don't know, like it doesn't sound good, and there's not really this kind of wholesome family American, even like American apple pie type vibe to it, or connotation to it. So anyway, yeah, I'm telling you probably too much of the backstory here, but it's all very interesting. The other thing is, there is this movie called The Founder, and it's free on Amazon, even if you don't have an Amazon whatever, membership or whatever. That's based on his life, and that was interesting. I don't know how much of that movie is true, but I wasn't surprised by a lot of what happened in the movie. So there's that as well if you're really interested in him. But his chart creates a current sky pattern because we have Mars in Scorpio, or sorry, Mars in Cancer, which Mars will be in soon. Sun in Virgo, which is currently Mercury in Libra, coming soon. Saturn aspecting Aquarius here. And Jupiter's in an Earth sign. So Jupiter's going to be aspecting the other Earth signs here. So there's quite a bit of similar energy here. So let's just go through house by house. But again, the main things, just the 2 things, 3 parivartana yogas and the lunar eclipse coming up for him. The other thing, what was the other thing? One third thing here is that as a Scorpio rising, probably, most likely, Mars is this lugnacious, this ruling planet, and you can see Mars is Gandanta here. So again, I just did a video on Sunday and Gandanta. Gandanta is when like a planet or a lugna or whatever is crossing from a water sign into a fire sign. And whenever a planet crosses any sign, there's instability because you're changing elements here. Like you're going from air to water, or going from earth to air, or that sort of thing. But when you cross 3 particular points in a chart or in the zodiac, when you go from a water sign to a fire sign, you're not only changing the constellation energy, but you're changing the nakshatra energy at the same time. So it's a double instability. Yeah. I did a whole video on this. So if his lugnatia was Gandanta, again, a lot of hardship here, potentially. But if people survive a Gandanta birth, okay, they can end up becoming kings. Okay, so even though it seems like there's a lot of challenge here, we have 3 different components, 3 parivartanas, an upcoming lunar eclipse, and then a lugnatia Gandanta here, which indicate that at a certain time, if the moment's right, if the person runs the right planets, things are going to turn around. And that's essentially what happened to him, because he was like a struggling salesman. Like the reason why he met those 2 brothers in the hamburger joint in California was that he was selling milkshake mixers. And they ordered a bunch of them, and he was surprised. He's like, why do these people want like 8 milkshake mixers? It's like usually 1 is more than what people need. So he goes to the place and he sees it. It's like this whole like, official. Oops, sorry, there's a slip in the audio there. So he goes to visit these brothers in California and sees this whole operation. But um, he was struggling, and he was like, I think 50 something when he just stumbled into this. But then look what he did with it. So he franchised McDonald's in 1954. So how old was he? He was 52 when he got involved with McDonald's, as just like a struggling salesman for milkshake mixers. And then he purchased McDonald's. So from the brothers, again, hostily, by 1961. So within, what is it, 7 years, he took over the thing and he expanded it globally. So I think by the time he died, there were 2,000 McDonald's around the world. I mean, that's shocking, in so many ways. And also, again, this is a shocking chart. Okay, so let's go through house by house, starting at the lugna here, so the chandra lugna here. So again, Scorpio, Vrishika, chandra lugna, probably, most likely, I'm guessing from what I saw. It's a fixed water sign, so sterigel. So this is somebody who's going to be unwavering in the way they feel about things. And this is, again, assuming this is correct for him, he's not going to budge. This is somebody who's not going to budge. There is some instability, though, because Mars, his Lugnatia, his ruling planet, is in a destabilized sign, or a debilitation sign. The other thing, Mars is in Ashlesha nakshatra. Ashlesha nakshatra is symbolized by a snake. So especially because we have a natural malefic planet of Mars, and that you're going to get this kind of snake-like quality, frankly. So, and you have Saturn aspecting Mars, and you have Jupiter aspecting Mars. Jupiter is debilitated, so any kind of goodness, luckily Jupiter had some influence here because Jupiter's still a natural benefic, so that was actually probably a good thing. It's going to give more energy and drive to him. And then the Saturn is going to bring this, like, Saturn and Mars combination is like an engineering type leader, strategic type leader, somebody who's not going to stop. And that's essentially, his whole chart is what you're seeing here. So again, but it didn't happen until he started. And I think this, again, I don't know exactly, but when this all took off for him, he basically was in his Venus period. And Venus is in parivartana with Mercury. So that's when Venus and Mercury both take off for him, essentially. And his life took off in many ways. He is a debilitated, but also nicha bhanga. So this Jupiter is also going to help because Cancer is an exaltation sign for Jupiter, even though it's a debilitation sign for Mars. So that's going to bring up this Mars debilitation. And there's also there's also a parivartana exchange of houses between Mars and Moon. So Moon is also going to bring strength to the 9th house of authority and institutions, and Mars is going to bring strength to the lugna, so the whole chart. So it's even though it seems like a very destabilized Mars, you can see that at least in 2 ways, this Mars is actually pretty strong here. The thing though is that, again, Mars is in Ashlesha. Okay, so, and Mars can be like somebody who's, frankly, a thief. And, snakes have this kind of slippering energy. And, again, I don't like to put this stuff out there and, do any sort of character assassination or whatever. But at least in the movie, there were several instances where he basically, essentially screwed people over, in various ways. Like the founding brothers or whatever. He was essentially harassing them so much and not following the contract that he had with them that he was literally, I think, causing one of the brothers some pretty severe health issues from the stress. And then he bought them out, I think. Again, if the movie's details are true, I don't know if they're true, but he basically, after taxes, each brother got $1 million, and he was supposed to give them 1% royalties from whatever McDonald's did in perpetuity. But he, at the last minute, said, "Oh, let's do it on a handshake for this, that, or whatever reason," and they accepted it, and they never got any royalties. So he's basically, and then in the end, they're just like, how is this fair, right? And he's like, "Well, at least you got $1 million check." Like, so at least, he was the kind of guy, I guess he couldn't, there was enough, luckily, maybe Jupiterian energy that at least he gave them $1 million and walked away and took over their whole thing, and made it, So anyway, from his perspective, he thought he was a good guy. And there was goodness too, like actually, we'll talk about it. There's actually a lot of charitable things that happen with McDonald's. I think mostly because of his third wife or whatever. She was into that, but and then what else happened? Oh, is he was married before, and then so he was a struggling salesman again. McDonald's starts taking off, and then he tells his wife he wants a divorce, and he gave the wife like the house and the insurance and the car, but he didn't even give her 1% stock or whatever in McDonald's. So he totally cut her off as well, even though she was like, financially, morally supportive to him or whatever for years. So yeah, that was, I mean, and then also like actually his third wife was married to one of his business partners. So at least in the movie, it seemed like, again, I don't know if it's just movie theatrics or how much of this is based in reality, but essentially they gave an indication that he essentially stole her, the wife of one of his business partners, as his third wife. So, so it's pretty clear, kind of viewpoint from the side of the movie, and frankly, none of that would surprise me with a chart like this. And there's going to be a lot of, like I said, a lot of stuff hidden here. But let's keep going. So with all this stuff going on, the parivartana, moon, Mars and Ashlesha, emotional, intuitive person, hospitality and food with this moon, property because of Mars. So you get this mix here. It's almost like a dual chart in a way. You get Mars's property, like it's a bhumi-karaka, a planet symbolizing property, and moon is hospitality and food, nourishment. And then Mars is also an innovative leader, rebellious leader. That's so. Again, this is somebody that is not, you can't contain, and they couldn't contain, and he just like took over their lives and their business and stuff like that, and kind of made their lives hell, frankly. So, um, but so property leadership, but again, very innovative. I mean, he was like that's when they were starting to industrialize different foods. So he got the idea from somebody else. Again, I don't think it was his idea, but he kept taking other people's ideas and running with them essentially. So I don't know that he was like the creative type, but he could spot a good idea and then just like work it to death essentially. But somebody pointed out to him that there was like this instant, milkshake mix made with powdered milk or something like that that you just add to water, and he decided to do that because it cut down a lot of his refrigeration costs, with ice cream, real ice cream, and stuff like that. So that also, increased profit. So again, that's an efficiency thing, but that was the kind of thing that went against the original two brothers who were just like, milkshakes have real milk in them. So anyway, but it was innovative. Whether you agree with it or not is a good contribution. It was innovative. Also, I would say attention seeking. This Ashlesha energy. Usually people who have Ashlesha placements, they have this mesmerizing energy like a snake. Snakes kind of draw your attention. And that was something that drove him. He wanted attention. So he was an attention-seeking person. Also contentious, again, this Mars and Moon. I mean, he had a very aggressive mind here, a very rebellious mind here. And I would even say like ADHD I could see in here. The Lugnacious is debilitated bhanga. Mars has gone to a dharmasthana. That was a little bit surprising. But, there was some duty here. The other thing is that this Mars is in the ninth house of father and religion authority. So this is his enterprise, this is his way of doing business. But also his father was apparently when he moved to the United States, was this massive real estate tycoon and made a ton of money, but then lost it all in the great economic or stock market crash. And what is it, 1929 or something like that? So yeah, a lot like Dad, I'm guessing here, what I'm seeing here. Um, Yeah, the other thing is Jupiter is in Shravana. Shravana is a nakshatra indicating like storytelling. And Saturn, the Swan Saturn here, when you do the parivartana, is in Uttarashana, so this piercing victory. So is again more victory energy here. But the Shravana piece, and you can see Jupiter here, this Jupiter-Saturn exchange, there's a parivartana between Saturn and Jupiter. So this is like second house oral communication, third house written communication. This is somebody who's like a nonstop talker, communicator, and as a salesperson, you would need something like that. And also, this with this Jupiter and Shravana versus this or aspecting this Mars and Ashlesha, this could be somebody who's like, fibbing, exaggerating, embellishing, if I'm going to put it nicely. I mean, I don't like to outright call people liars or whatever, but there's a possibility here. Um, and yeah, so and then the Saturn, so again, Saturn aspecting here into the ninth house. You have the two bhumi karakas, the two real estate planets in the ninth house of institution and authority. You have Jupiter there and Moon there as well through parivartana and aspecting. So again, nourishment and public children, that sort of thing. Because that was also one of the things he did was like that clown, who's like the mascot of McDonald's. Ray Kroc came up with that because he wanted to basically start advertising and to children directly rather than their parents. So, you know what I mean? This guy was out to make a buck and he did it well. He did it. I mean, all this stuff, whether you want to talk about the health indications here or the global environment indications or whatever, I mean, that's a whole other thing. But in terms of making a profit, it worked. So, yeah, essentially property management and law. Also, all the legal, he basically had to learn all this legal stuff to get all this stuff done. Real estate tycoon, him and his father. It may be, but he potentially was also born into Sati Sati, so again, there was some difficulty in childhood. The other thing I thought was interesting is all the benefics are debilitated here. So Jupiter's debilitated, Moon is debilitated, Venus is debilitated. I mean, that's also saying quite a lot. And Mercury's, in a negative house here. The thing is that these things, luckily, are in parivartana. All three, four of these are in parivartana, so that gives them some strength. But you know, it's going to be a mixed bag. Probably depending on the day and this guy's mood. This guy, I'm sure, is very moody, quite angry, very aggressive with this Mars Moon combination. So, okay, so yeah, okay, so the second house lords is a Swa Jupiter. When you do the parivartana, Sundi Saturn. So it's an unstable Saturn, but again, you can see storytelling here, kids here, also long-term land finance, because the second house is also the house of assets, and with Jupiter there, I would see like financing land, which is essentially what the McDonald's Corporation, not McDonald's restaurant, does. So, and then with Jupiter going back there, there's gonna be a lot of money. With Jupiter Swan, the second house, a lot of money and assets here, especially land assets. Yeah, gains through property. Then third house here, third house lords of Swa Saturn. What is it? Debilitated bhavam Jupiter. So Jupiter's bhavam because the second house lord is gone two houses away. So this is again a lot of communication. This is all the sales and marketing and publicity. He was like nonstop about this stuff. Um, and so marketing and publishing and stuff like that. The written and oral publicity materials and stuff. Fourth house lord is a Swa. Saturn's aspecting here into its own sign. It's also aspected by Mars. So a traditional family, but also I would say, legacy of property management. And, also rebellious. I mean, for somebody to leave their country, his father left Czechoslovakia, but also, made a killing in terms of property and stuff. The fifth house lord is Jupiter, and this house is aspected by Saturn, Mercury, Venus, Sun. So, Mercury's going to be debilitated by bhanga, Venus is going to be exalted here. Mercury's in Swati, so kind of a beginning of, I would say, beginning business overseas, because Mercury is in the 12th house of losses and expenditures, but in Parivartana, Venus is going to stop so much of the hemorrhaging of the losses, and 12th house also indicates foreign places, and Rahu is there, so ambition to expand into foreign markets of fledgling business. You can see this all here. Venus in Uccha Falguni, so enjoyment with a purpose. So again, it's all fun and games, or he tried, with the little happy meals and balloons, and they would make these, grand opening parties and make it fun for kids with the mascots. So there was all this kind of fun and games stuff here, but it was all for business reasons to make a profit. Yeah. So the fifth house, business, leadership, and travel, transportation, enjoyment. Because the other thing is like Venus and Mercury are both travel planets. So yeah. Sixth house here, sixth house lord is Mars. And then we have a Gandanta Ketu here, so a very unstable Ketu. And again, this is a sixth house of enemies. And yeah, so you can see there's some strong enemy relationships here. What was aspecting here? We had Jupiter aspecting here, Mercury aspecting here, Venus. So this is like the benefics are on here. That's going to smooth things over a bit, but it's almost like blowing up, uh, you know, good relationships here. I mean, I'm not sure this guy would hold himself back for a friend or close associate or whatever. I mean, he's just doing his thing, making this, creating his hamburger land empire or whatever, and making a name for himself. It seems like that's what was really driving him in a lot of ways. Um, and maybe even because the Mars went to the uh, ninth house of father and stuff like that, it might even be that, he felt some deficit from, maybe his father losing all his money in the stock market and or his father being an immigrant. I mean, who knows? But it might be that he was trying to make up for his losses. Like he still, even though Ray Kroc was born in the United States, he still felt like an outsider, from his language and stuff like that. Rather than like I mean, he was born as an American, but I don't know that he had an American, fully kind of American mindset necessarily. Okay, so yeah, lots of enemies, blowing up lots of good relationships there, it looks like. Um, but some ability to smooth it. So probably it was like he was able to be in relationship long enough to get what he needed out of people, and then like, once there was nothing left in that relationship, he would just, blow it up, or whatever. Keep moving forward. So the seventh house lord is Venus. It's aspected by Mars, Jupiter, and exalted moon. So again, innovation, public, enjoying food and travel, that's his business here. So well done. And moon is exalted here. Venus is Swatru Parivartana. So again, Venus is in the 11th house of clubs, groups, societies, and then it's Parivartana with the 12th house of, foreign places. So let's see how that all connects. Eighth house here, eighth house lord is Mercury. And it's aspected by Mars, Jupiter, and exalted moon. So, oh wait, no, sorry. Mercury is the eighth house lord. It's aspected by Saturn and Jupiter. So again, long-term international expansion strategy here, right? Because his mind from the beginning was about international expansion here, and how do we do this? How do we expand, and especially the I think real estate business, that was more, again, his thing when he figured that out. And again, he got that idea, he got that milkshake, powdered milkshake idea from somebody else. He also got somebody else was the one who said, you should really get into the real estate portion, because that's where you can make a lot of money. You're not going to make much money off of 15. They were selling hamburgers for like 15 cents and so yeah. So um so he got that, stole the idea, borrowed the idea. So, you kind of get a vibe here, though, right? So, yeah, he always had his, eyes on the prize in terms of long-term international expansion strategy. Ninth house lord, the ninth house um, lord, sorry, is moon, and he's got Mars there. I gotta fix that. So the ninth house lord is the moon, and he's got Mars there, and then he's got Jupiter and Saturn aspecting there. So the Saturn and Mars will give like engineering and like manufacturing. So it gives like land, like real estate, but also gives manufacturing of food. Industrialization of food, which is essentially a lot of what McDonald's did. So travel, food, automation, land, institution. 10th house Lord is Sun. It's aspected by Jupiter. Again, leadership and marketing, publicity. 11th house lord is a swan. Mercury, sun's debilitated. Oh no, sorry. Sun is okay. It's a debilitated bhanga Venus. So this is a dual leader in enjoyment, business, travel, a lot of money here because Mercury comes back to its own house. And also charities. So the Venus, since it's the lord of the 12th house, since it's gone to the 11th house, that means that Venus is um bhavam as well. So that means there's going to be a stop to these losses here, which is essentially when he ran Venus, and that's when Venus was the one that stopped all the, like the losses through the sales jobs and stuff like that. And then again, a contribution to charitable contributions because he was making so much money. And then 12th house lord. 12th house lord is a sorry, Bhavam Venus. Mercury's there, Rahu's there, and Chitra. So again, um, unusual international structures, architecture. So he set stake to international property, travel, enjoyment, business worldwide, and the losses I'm seeing here. So yeah, this is McDonald's is the most successful food chain by revenue. It serves 69 million customers daily, which I think is 1% of the world's population. I mean, that's wild. And they have establishments in over 100 countries, and they own all the land where they do business. He also he owned the San Diego baseball team at some point. He was an alcoholic and had a stroke, which again, Mars going into the Mars and Ashleisha going back into the first house, you could see alcoholic and stroke. Yeah. So Ray Kroc and McDonald's. There you go. Okay, now we've got Mars or Mongol. So October 6th, Mars has an exact aspect on Mercury. To be conjoined with Sun and K2. So a lot of disruption here. Technology, computers, communication, travel, all the above, any of the above. October 13th, Mars and Jupiter have an exact aspect on Sun. So this is going to challenge the Sun, probably legal issues for father, authority, boss, government, military, and stuff. October 20th, Mars enters Cancer or Karaka. So this is kind of a big deal. I mean, Cancer is a friendly sign to Mars, but Mars is debilitated here. It's a movable water sign too. So, yeah, so it's a lot of fluctuations and emotions and maybe anger, irritation. Like this is a moody, this is like a teenage mood type energy here, the thing that was Mars will aspect Libra, where there's going to be a debilitated Sun and Mercury. So with the two, again, leadership planets Mars and Sun being debilitated, we're looking at unstable leadership, probably stable leadership communication. It will aspect Capricorn, where it's exalted. So that's cool. So Capricorn, again, Capricorn might be a little bit sleepy compared to what all these explosive energies are doing, but there's something being built in the midst of all this, something new. And Mars also aspects Aquarius, so where Saturn is sitting, so there's some sort of engineering and maybe even like obsessive thinking along some lines going on. Then October 28th, Mars enters Pusha Nakshatra. So again, Pusha's, and at least if Mars is going to be in Cancer, at least it's in Pusha, which is about emotional stability. So maybe attempt, but intermittent provision of emotional stability, that could be. So yeah, that's going to be Mars. And the thing is, Mars is going to retrograde, go back to Gemini, and then go back into Cancer. So Mars is going to be in Gemini Cancer, I think, until June of next year. So yeah, I mean, bunker down for this kind of energy. Okay, then we have the sun here. So October 2nd, solar eclipse I've been talking about, so you can see the previous slides. October 10th, sun enters Chitra Nakshatra. So it's a structure, new, unusual structures at work with authority, with governments. October 13th, Mars and Jupiter have an exact aspect on the sun. I've mentioned that previously, but again, it looks like there's some kind of legal challenge here to, again, work, authority, governments. October 16th, Sun enters Libra Chula, so it's a samkranti. Sun's going to be debilitated here. It's a movable air sign, Chara Vayu. So not a lot of clear thoughts, I think, regarding, authority and purpose, that sort of thing. But again, the sun represents things like father, government, authority, purpose, career, but also health generally, heart, eye, spine, brain. So again, all these things might be challenged while sun is in Libra. It is aspecting Aries where it's exalted, so that'll be strong. Although Saturn is also aspecting Aries where it's going to be debilitated. So there's an exaggerated energy going on in Aries here. So leadership, action versus traditional thought paradigm. So again, there's a contrast of energies here. October 23rd, Sun enters Swati Nakshatra. So fragile new beginning in leadership, education, business, and also potentially intense competition, anger, impulsiveness, because by that time, Mars is going to be aspecting Sun from Cancer. So yeah, still a lot of fire, and unfortunately, the fire energy is going to be unstable. So there can be inflammation of all kinds: body, mind, spirit, soul. Okay, so one more famous chart here. So this is the birth chart, or sorry, the sun rising chart, Surya Lagna for Noah Webster. And that may not ring a bell immediately, but the last name might, Webster. So if you've ever used an English dictionary, especially an American English dictionary, he is the father of American English dictionaries. His name, Webster, is synonymous with dictionary. And that's what he was. He was a lexicographer. So, again, he's another person who probably has touched, even though he's very pro-American, especially in establishing American English as really almost a separate language from like British English, for example. He has not only taught Americans through generations, how to read, write, spell, but a lot of people. So let's just look at his chart. He was born October 16th, 1758 in West Hartford, Connecticut. And the Lagna Nakshatra we don't know, because I don't have an exact birth time for him. The Sun Nakshatra was in Chitra. So again, Chitra is all about, but it's the symbol of that is a gemstone. So it's all about like the structure of a cut gemstone. So architecture and building and stuff like that. So his purpose was in construction. And you can see Sun here is in Libra. So it's a debilitated Sun, like current sky pattern, or soon to be current sky pattern. The Moon Nakshatra. So we have another, potentially Gandanta. It looks like a Gandanta moon here. So the moon was in Revati until 7:31 in the morning this day, and then it was in Ashwini. So it's an unstable moon. So that can bring, instability. And there was a lot of instability in his life, despite there's actually the dictionary thing was probably the most stable thing he did. Seems like the day lord was either sun or moon. That changed at 6:15. Either way, there's some sort of authority here. Hurrah lord, we don't know. The Burjasha, Mercury, maybe K2 probably. That changed at 7:31. Either way, Mercury's all about communication and writing, and K2 is all about like unusual, unexpected, separatist. Type energy, and that was a big thing about his dictionary. Is it wasn't just like a dictionary, it was like an unusual dictionary. And part of what was unusual about it was he was creating the dictionary not from like a formal place so much, but he was putting like so his dictionary had 70,000 words in it. 12,000 of those words were new words that had never been published or written. So he was basing his dictionary off of the actual language people use in everyday life, which was a big shift from like British dictionaries who were, very pedantic in their construction. So it's like the assumption of a British dictionary at that time was that you had to know Greek and Latin to understand British English language. But he was just like, well, most Americans don't have the opportunity to know Greek and Latin, even though he was well educated. So he was basing it off the, vernacular, American English. So that was like a huge rebellious move. And we've been talking about K2 being like a rebellious move, right? Energy throughout the whole video here. So either way, I think it works for him. Mercury K2 is British, huh? So his chart recreates a current sky pattern. Sun's debilitating Libra, Mars aspects Aquarius, Sun is retrograde in Aquarius. We got another one of those. And Mercury is Swan Virgo. So you can see a lot of similar energy. Let's go through house by house. And you can see already there are a lot fewer arrows than Ray Kroc's chart. Ray Kroc's chart was like, wild, very wild. And he was a wild guy. So it makes sense. But so the Surya Lugna here was Libra or Tula, movable air sign. So a lot of thinking, which you'd have to do if you put together 70,000 words in a dictionary. I mean, that's just like, it blows my mind to think about that. Debilitated sun, aspected by a full Gandanta moon, probably, depending on where the moon was, because it just crossed signs or about to cross signs. So some sort of authority, career is in mind construction. So how do you, because he was building a way to lead and structure people's minds and also the public itself, you know. There's a lot of deep influence, I mean, here in terms of just setting creating basically a standard for American English, essentially. Probably poor health, I'm guessing. But his independent business is seventh house here with the sun, even though the sun is debilitated in Libra, it's exalted in Mars, in Aries. So again, there is a lot of purpose in him doing this independent project, which I don't know. It said in his bio that he was throughout his life in debt. So this dictionary that he spent how many years? 26 years writing, putting together. He actually didn't make any money off of it, or not much. So it was definitely a labor of love or some sort of deep mission, sense of mission here. So anyway, yeah, the Lugnatia is debilitated. Bhanga, Venus. Venus is debilitated here. It's Bhanga because of Mercury, so that brings it up a bit. It's in the 12th houses of Moksha Sthana. So the 12th house is all about isolation. Venus is art, and Mercury in this Virgo energy is all about cleaning and sorting and in practical ways. So his art was cleaning up and sorting through language, and he would go off and do that, in isolation. Probably a fairly reclusive sort, although you can see here, kind of like Ray Kroc, there's this tension between the second house and eighth house. So there's a relationship here. So you can see Jupiter is in the second house of oral communication with Mars. That's going to give a lot of contentious, angry, competitive, assertive speech. And actually, Saturn is aspecting here. So, kind of like Ray Kroc, he was also somebody who is like nonstop communicating orally, but also in written form because Jupiter is the lord of the third house of like nonverbal communication. And that's where we have our Sundi Ketu here, rebellious. So, again, this whole big written work thing he did was quite rebellious from the way dictionaries had been created before. So we got another, and the thing is that he's a Libra, Sun's in Libra, and that may be shocking if you come from a Western astrology perspective, because in Western astrology, Libras are kind of seen as like conflict averse because they're ruled by Venus. But in Vedic astrology, there's a rebellious energy associated with Libras. So, keep that in mind too if you're coming from a different tradition of astrology. So his art is a practical organization of communication. So all of this, his dictionaries. He has a Kala Sarpa yoga here. That's going to give him ambition and also make things a little bit more unusual. Subha solar yoga. He's got all these benefics around his sun. That's going to bring him a lot of power, status, acclaim, um, that sort of thing. Chidra grahas are moon and Mars. So, I think there was some, yeah, I would say some mental, what did I say? Some mental um, stress, I would say. Mars also, like, part of part of the reason why his dictionary did not take off immediately was because it was so unusual compared to the way dictionaries had been formed before. So again, he never really saw the money that could have been made through this endeavor, huge endeavor. I mean, 26 years, 70,000 words. I mean, that's wild. And in addition, this also blew my mind to understand etymology, so the word derivation through history, he learned 28 languages. I was like, what? I mean, even 8 languages is a lot. He learned 28 languages, like Greek, Latin, Sanskrit, Hindi, whatever, German, French, all of them, so that he could trace. I was like, wow. So he's not just like, plugging and chugging here. And this again is in 1758, all by hand. I mean, pages and pages of like him writing. I was like, wow, wow. I was stunned when I had no idea. And this is actually his house is in West Hartford. That's not too far from where I live. So I was like, maybe I should go visit that. I'm like pretty impressed by this guy. So I haven't been there yet. So this might be my opportunity or motivation to go actually. So the second house again, I've sort of been talking about the second house Lord is a Swan Mars. So a lot of rebellious speech here. But his Mars is an Anurada. So at least there's building bridges here as opposed to potentially a Vishaka or Jesta, which are much more aggressive energies in Scorpio. Jupiter though is in Jesta, so there is a protective energy here of some kind, protecting language, I think, and balance, that sort of thing. It's aspected by Swa retrograde Saturn and Shatabisha. So again, you have Saturn and Mars together, engineering, protecting speech, argumentative. He actually was a lawyer, but he was a failed lawyer. Like he went through, he graduated and I guess hung out a shingle, and then nobody showed up. So I guess he did some teaching, and then he did his dictionaries and kind of scraped by the rest of his life. Is essentially his story. So the third house lord is Jupiter. K2 is there in Uttarashada. So K2 is unstable, but Uttarashada, that's a piercing victory. Victory, unusual, rebellious publication, less aristocratic. It's K2 is a very like anti-authority, anti-everything type energy. Because again, he wasn't assuming people knew Greek or Latin or would need to know Greek or Latin. Or also like his dictionary was not religious based, because a lot of dictionaries, I guess, were more religious in tone or nature or basis or something like that. So it was a very secular type. So again, separating church and state, doing his own thing here. And again, writing about speech. The fourth house lord Saturn. Again, pragmatic family. Fifth house lord is a Swa, retrograde Saturn. And there's a mutual aspect with Mars. So again, Saturn and Mars together, when you get those two planets together, you can get a workaholic energy, an engineering energy, um, athletic energy, just somebody who won't quit. I mean, 26 years, this is just blowing my mind. So, and this is all happening in the fifth house. So this nonstop workaholic energy in this fifth house of intellect. So this is a NASA engineering type of mind that this guy is. Sixth house lord is a Swa, Jupiter. So Jupiter's aspecting its own sign here. There's the debilitated Mercury, but exalted Venus. So he worked on this dictionary daily, because you have all these benefics in the sixth house of, um, what is it, daily habits and stuff like that. And I would say this guy probably had very few enemies. I mean, he doesn't, with all these benefics in the sixth house. So, but he would probably have debt, I would say here. Because again, the 12th house lord is aspecting the sixth house of debt. Then the seventh house lord is Mars. The moon is here, aspected, by its sun, which is going to be exalted here. So again, a pioneering architect. authority. The eighth house lord is Venus. It's aspected by Jupiter and Mars. So this is somebody who's constantly thinking about his project and language, innovating language, I'd say. The ninth house lord is Mercury. We have Rahu here in Punarvasu, and it's aspected by Mars. So there was a goal or aim here for higher education, government, and religion. And he was actually part of the Connecticut House of Representatives, so he did get into politics later in his life. And also later in his life, he did become quite religious. He wasn't so much in the beginning. So, there's definitely a drive there towards the ninth house. And then the 10th house lord is Moon. It's aspected by an exalted Jupiter. So nurturing public communication and charity and that sort of thing. Because again, he spent all this time. Can you imagine? I mean, even if you worked for like minimum wage for 26 years, so he was clearly had some higher purpose, in mind here. And that may be because again, the Lagnatia here has gone to a moksha. This is about liberation. I mean, I think not just for him. I mean, I think it was. I mean, just imagine what kind of good karma he created through this, but also for the people around him. Because through standardizing American English, because again, he was born before the establishment of the country as an independent country from Britain. So he was essentially helping the United States create a separate and unique identity from Britain. You know, uh, separating. It's like the river. A branch in the river, branch in the road. Um, so that's like really deep thinking. Really long term deep thinking. And again, he was definitely mission based on what I'm seeing here. Then what else? The 11th house lord is the sun, which is debilitated. It's aspected by Saturn, so there's no money coming in for this guy, not much. Also not very social, I would say, because again, he wrote prolifically. I mean, he wrote so much stuff, even stuff on like beyond language and politics, because he wrote a lot about politics, but he wrote about stuff like diseases and stuff, which is kind of weird, because he didn't have a medical background, but Saturn's in Shas, and maybe Moon is in Ashwini. So I was thinking that. I was thinking, maybe he was like a doctor or something. Um, or maybe he was, maybe because he was sick himself, because again, the sun's debilitated here. I'm guessing. I didn't read that in the bio, but I'm guessing he was not of great health. Um, yeah, so maybe that also sparked more writing and communication from him, because he was clearly prolific. Yeah, but yeah, not much money coming in. The 12th house again, 12th house lord is a swa Mercury. That's going to prevent him from going into absolute, poverty here, even though he was scraping by. And there's a debilitated Venus, so childhood, maybe abroad or isolation, protection from losses. Um, and then what else? So I mentioned, yeah, he's a textbook pioneer. He first published his dictionary in 1806. And, again, it taught generations of people how to read and spell, standardized American English. By 1837, it sold 15 million copies. Again, I think he passed away before then. Gotta check on that. And again, it took him 26 years. He learned 28 languages, and he was about to publish his second version right before he died. So I think there's a second version, and then the rights of that were bought up by Miriam, somebody named Miriam. So if you see a Merriam-Webster dictionary, you'll know that he was essentially the one who originated all that. Again, 70,000 words, 12,000 new words, first time published, and, was a politician to some degree, and, all the spelling bees and stuff like that. I guess it all started with here, because you couldn't really have a spelling bee if you couldn't agree on spelling. So there you go. So that's him. Pretty interesting guy, and also quite rebellious, and also somebody who clearly had to have a very clear, deep vision, right, and courage, right, because he was going against the grain, like a lot of these people I've been talking about. Hence the theme for the month here. So Okay, so if you like to be your own astrologer, again, you might take one of these planets or houses. I mean, a lot of the action going on this month is in Virgo, Kanya, and Libra, Tula. So, like, if you wanted to, since things are moving into Libra, that might be interesting. So, find out where Libra is. Again, this is a North Indian style chart. So, like, if Libra is your first house, then that would represent self, personality, health, reputation. So, when Venus and Mercury and Sun move through Libra, to give you some indication of what's going on here. Or if Libra is your eighth house, then Venus, Mercury, Sun moving through Libra will affect things like chronic disease, death, bankruptcy, and occult knowledge. I would guess if Libra is your eighth house and you have Venus in there now, you might very much be interested in spiritual arts like Vedic astrology. So that might be why you're watching this video. So anyway, you get an idea here. I just written a few words for each house. I have videos on each house in depth. So, this is just a starting point kind of check and see for yourself. But I have here the first seventh house or bhava axis, the 2-8 bhava house axis, the 3-9 bhava house axis. Just a few words to understand what the houses are about. And then on this next slide, I have the 410 house axis, the 511 house axis, and the 612 house axis. So again, you can, check and see, take your notes, and see what you experience in your life and how it's playing out for you. But again, if you're a beginner, just be careful that you don't scare yourself, freak yourself out. You might think like something, massively bad is coming. And again, it's like one of those things where you might have enough knowledge just to be dangerous. So just don't hurt yourself, hurt your mind. When in doubt, ask somebody who's got more experience than you. All right. So as always, thank you for hanging out with me and listening to one of my talks. All of my teaching videos on the subject of Vedic astrology are my consults playlist. They can all be found there. If you want more famous birth charts, I would check out my birth chart archive list 2024 video for a list of all of the ones I've done up until April and the videos you can find them in. I'm going to probably redo that video in the spring, so it'll include all the videos from this year as well. If you're interested in an individual birth chart reading, I do them live on Zoom and then it's pre-recorded video. You can email heartlightastro@yahoo.com for more info on that. I do have another YouTube channel on natural medicine, including other Vedic arts such as Ayurveda, which is traditional Indian medicine and yoga, as well as other paradigms of medicine like homeopathy and naturopathic medicine. The name of that channel is Nature Source Care, so that's out there too, if that's interesting to you. So thank you all, again, not just for stopping by, but all the different ways that you support my work in the channel here. Liking videos, subscribing, posting comments, questions, sending in donations, asking about individual birth chart readings. All of it's very much appreciated. So thank you for all of that. So as always, I hope you found this talk helpful, useful, and interesting to you as you learn to navigate the energy cycles of your own life. All right, so until the next one, take good care. Namaste.